Okay, we're live. So, welcome to the Cinema Savvy Movie Podcast. I'm Chris Garner, joined with my co-host George Aldridge and Tom Woods. And today we are going to be talking about the very divisive Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. We've been talking about it for actually like an hour before, so we already know it's going to be a very heated debate. But as always, we'll go into a spoiler-free review first, so we don't give anything away. But there's a whole lot to talk about in spoilers. So if you have seen it, you probably have at this point. Do stick around because we'll be going more in depth into it. So, are we ready to take on this movie, everyone? Because it's gonna be a good one.
The Cinema Savvy Civil War. You have two people in the same room that hated Man of Steel, and one of the two that liked it. And the other one who's currently scheming.
That's a lie. I actually really liked it when I first saw it.
Yeah, but then like last week you were Team Chris and just didn't tell.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and you abandoned me, leaving me on my own platform.
Let's be honest. If Tate was here, this would be two on two. This is a match.
And that's a good point, actually. Tate is currently on holiday, so I don't believe he's actually got a chance to see the movie yet. So when he gets back, he's going to see it, and we're going to do like another discussion thing with that, because it'd be interesting to get his thoughts. I've got a feeling he's going to really like that movie. And also we might have another one, because I went to see it with you last night and two others, and one of my mates has very, very strong feelings on this movie and the DC films in general. So he says he'd quite like to jump on for a review or two. So we'll probably have another two discussions up at some point, but there's definitely a lot to talk about. So I guess we'll just jump in with initial impressions then, and then we'll start to break it down. As I said, this is the spoiler-free section first, so we won't give anything away. George, we'll get the good view out of the way first. So, what did you think of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice?
Right. When Dawn of Rises came out, I hyped that film for a good year, and I still love Dawn of Rises. With this one, I haven't really been hyped as such. Maybe the past week or two, I've been excited, and the whole thing has been similar to a lot of people. They're more excited to see the new Batman than anything else. So, I've never been fazed by Superman, but I was kind of. Basically, I was excited to see the Batman stuff, whereas the hype wasn't there. So I saw it at midnight. I finished work at 11, so I just walked into town and saw it with my mates. And I went in with the lowest expectations because of the reviews. However, I do want to say that some of the critics, they're justified in whatever they want to say, but I don't believe in the nonsense of the ones that are only comparing this to the Avenger films. I think that's wrong, because I know you guys hate this film, but Batman's not a character that should be making cracking jokes, and there shouldn't be a bright color palette on Batman, if you know what I mean. I respect their opinions, but not the ones that are saying it's not the Avengers. Like, they can go fuck themselves. Especially when Indiana Jones high rating on Rotten Tomatoes. That just means that, okay, have your own interpretation is fine, but you know it's not going to be the Avengers, so why compare it to it? And that's that minor sort of rant sorted out. But I came out of this film and I genuinely really enjoyed it. I mean, we'll go into more details now, but I was shocked at how much I liked this. I don't know whether that's because I went in with such low expectations. I'm not a fan of Zack Snyder at all. I do like Watchmen, but that's just plagiarism.
You like Man of Steel, though, right? Like,
I've said before, I think I sent you guys like a picture of my thoughts. This was like 3:30 in the morning. And I was there like, I think Superman's one of the most boring two-dimensional characters in cinema. That's why that's like something I like, because they're trying to do different things with it, which is the main reason my opinion is going to be so different to yours. But I did enjoy Man of Steel. That had Nolan's fingerprints on it. This is the first purely Zack Snyder film, because 300 was the studio telling him what to do. He was a rookie. Watchmen, source material. Man of Steel, again, the studio, he had some freedom, some not. This is the first time he's been given the sort of Kevin Feige keys to the kingdom, and we know the rest. I want to hear you guys, because I do like this film, but I'm not a retard. There's an exceptional amount of flaws, but I do really enjoy this film. I'm one of them that I can put. I mean, I like Transformers, so that sums up.
Oh boy, the action does get quite into that. It's just straight into the Transformers realm, doesn't it? A bit. Initial thoughts then. Well, you know my thoughts on Man of Steel. I was so hyped for that movie before it was coming out. The trailers looked incredible. It looked like it was going to do something completely new with the character. And if you watch our live stream, you know I absolutely just tear that movie down. There were a few things I kind of liked what they were trying to do, but it never sort of became fully fleshed out for me. And so I remember when this movie was announced, and I was thinking already from the get-go that this is way too early to start introducing Batman and all these. And then sort of as the production went on, we heard they were going to have Wonder Woman in there, loads of references to Justice League stuff. And I remember thinking that this just needed to be a standalone Superman movie to further set up his character. But then the Batman stuff started coming out with Ben Affleck, and they released the image with him in the suit next to the Batmobile. And I thought, hang on, they're doing something good here. This looks like the Batman I've always wanted to see on screen. Even in trailers as well, I wasn't digging the trailers. It did look too grim, depressing, but I did think that Batman looked like it was going to be the best bit of the film. Whether it was or not, I'm still undecided. Yeah. But initial impressions, now you go into yours, I hated, loathed, detest this movie. Almost beginning to end. I can't really think of anything concrete that I enjoyed in this movie. Maybe when we get into the discussion, maybe I'll pick up on a few bits, but I was just bored, and that's one of the biggest things of this movie. It's a boring movie. It's 150 minutes long, and you'll go for about 40 minutes and you'll think back and nothing really much has happened. It's almost like a collection of short 30-second to a minute long clips just stitched together with no sort of structure or anything like that. I hated Man of Steel, but I think that it's a much more what's the word I'm looking for, structurally sound movie compared to this one. It felt like it had a beginning, middle and end, whereas this one, the whole scenes are just jumbled up. You could reorder them in any way. There's cutaways and stuff that don't really make sense, and I just had a miserable time at this movie. For a film called Batman v Superman, there is very little of Batman being Superman in this movie. It's a whole load of setup with not much joy, and it's one of the most arduous movie-going experiences I think I've ever had in my life. What about you, Tom?
Well, I was, with all the news coming out about them making a Batman versus Superman film, I was very hesitant at first. And I think, to be honest, I didn't really care with the news. And then the trailers came out, and my initial thought was, I kind of want to see it just to see how bad of a train wreck it actually is.
Yeah.
And you know, it is a train wreck. It is a mess and a half of a film. It is so bad. One of the main issues is that it is extremely poorly paced.
Yeah.
You'll go, I'll elaborate on your point, Chris, about you'll go 40 minutes without anything actually happening, and that is essentially the whole film. Nothing happens. Well, stuff does happen, but nothing actually resembles anything that makes an actual coherent story. There's no character in it at all. And one of the things watching it, you just fidget in your seat an awful lot, and nothing really gets accomplished at the end.
No one learns anything.
No one learns anything at all, and you're just scratching your head, going, "What on earth is going on? Why am I sat here? What's the time? Can I actually leave now? God, this chair is really uncomfortable." And that is exactly my experience throughout the film. And you just kind of put your head in your hands, and you just fidget loads, and it's so boring. God, it's boring.
You saw this at midnight, didn't you, George? Can you imagine getting out of this movie at 3 a.m? We were complaining about getting out at midnight, but
I probably would have killed myself.
People I saw have liked it, and this is what I said to you guys before, that obviously the critics hate it, but of everyone I know is in, I follow on Twitter, I chat to about film and Twitter, people I know, all of that, you two the first two that have seen it, that disliked it. And I think it's going to be one of the films where Man of Steel was divisive with fans and critics, whereas this one is essentially just going to be the audience now. I mean, we saw some talks earlier, sad fleck they're calling it. They're just talking about critics. This is for the fans, because Zack Snyder's a massive comic book fan. We all know this, and the way this is reacted with comic book fans is that a lot of them really like it, and of course there are some that dislike it. I'm going to put you two down as that. But
one point I would like to raise is that yes, Zack Snyder is a massive comic book fan, granted, but that doesn't mean he can tell a cohesive story.
No,
and he just gets an amalgamation of bits from comics. Not that well, my comic knowledge is limited, but it just seems like he gets imagery from all these different sources and puts them all in a blender, so that it doesn't actually make a cohesive whole. It's incoherent, to say the least, and he is more concerned about how the film looks than he is with the substance behind it.
Yeah, that's what he is. He's
But even the visuals are bad. It is too dark, to say the least, in its colour.
Well, it is DC. You know, we have to be dark and brooding.
And that's not. I know before sort of starting this live stream, you raised a point, George, about things being light and colourful, and how that's not how Batman should be. But that's a valid point. I'm not going to take that away. But it's his colour scheme that doesn't work. It is too dark that you can't actually see what is going on at any point in this movie. It is completely desaturated. It looks bland, and there is nothing interesting about the visuals at all.
I think Zack Snyder's skill does lie behind the camera rather than directing, writing.
Well, he is essentially a music video director.
Yeah, and it shows.
Fucking show.
Yeah, but like with the action towards the end of this movie, and it's very difficult to like just go into spoilers because basically the trailers did spoil this whole movie.
Oh, yeah.
Trailer 2 being the biggest offender of that, because I think if they hadn't have released that trailer, the ending may have been somewhat of a surprise. But it's still been a bland movie, but at least there would have been something where you go, oh, I wasn't expecting to see that. But there were moments in this film, mostly in the opening scene, which I won't go into in case people don't want to know when anything happens, but there were some very nice shots and good attention to detail involving a certain movie playing at a movie theatre. I thought that was really nice. But then none of the cinematography really stood out to me for the rest of the movie. There were some, and when you were saying about there's no structure to it, it's like he just gathers as much graphic novel, comic material he can. This movie does feel like about 5 graphic novels. Just he took bits of them, just threw them against the wall, and then just whatever fell down is what he took from it. It needed structure. To me, if I'm going to compare this to any kind of superhero movie that's come out in the last 5 years, it would probably be Amazing Spider-Man 2. It's a superhero movie with way too many characters, way too much bloat, no structure, and just constantly teasing future setup movies. I mean, Amazing Spider-Man 2 was going to be the tentpole movie for Spider-Man that was going to lead to Sinister Six. It was going to lead to a Black Cat spin-off. It was going to lead to Amazing Spider-Man 3 and 4. And they put everything into that and forgot to make it a solid movie in its own right.
Oh, no, you're saying about...
we'll get George in it.
I was going to say, like, I need to jump in. You're right on you mentioned the 5 graphic novels. This is what I've seen one review which I cared about, and this is what I thought is there are essentially 4 or 5 films happening at the same time in this film, and this is what I don't like. I mean, I will go on to the sort of colour stuff after because I really want to speak phrases, but I don't want to burn. It's literally a Man of Steel 2 film, a Batman film, a Batman versus Superman film, and a Man of Steel 3 film, which is Lex Luthor as a villain. Then there's a kind of Doomsday film, which isn't a spoiler because they spoiled it in all the trailers. No sense. Which we'll talk about the ending later on because in the spoiler section, because there's one thing they didn't spoil. I'll give them credit for the one thing they didn't spoil. Oh, sorry, the 5th one being the Justice League setup film. And this is what kills it because you've got potential for 2 or 3 very, very good films. If you trim it down as well, you can trim all the Justice League stuff out, save yourself 10 minutes. That's all it would be. I'm going to say the trailer stuff, the nightmare stuff. yeah, that was bizarre. They're just if you look at Zack Snyder's sort of filmography, right, the best story of his is Dawn of the Dead. That's because A, it's a remake. B, James Gunn wrote that screenplay. Zack Snyder was just the sort of studio puppet at the time. Watchmen, he just annotated, he plagiarism. Man of Steel, he had Nolan not telling him what to do, but Zack Snyder didn't have 200% creative control on that. I think it's more David S. Goyer, Nolan, and Snyder, and sort of together, them three. This film was him for the first time on his own, 100% of the board's backing. He got rid of David S. Goyer after the first draft. Clearly got Ben Affleck to bring on Chris Terrio, who wrote Argo, who is clearly trying to fix or change some of the script which doesn't work. And I want to say with the sort of cinematography, because this is the big thing I noticed, he always uses this pathetic shaky cam, and I hate it because it's so distracting. And it can work in some films. I think the Bourne films were the kind of first ones to sort of break it in. And it does my head in that there's a dialogue scene. You do shot reverse shot, or you film something normal, but he's got a shaky cam on a dialogue scene which makes no sense, and it's so frustrating because then there'll be some shots where, I won't lie, some of the cinematography is in Man of Steel. It does look beautiful, the same for Watchmen, but again, that's because he's taken it from these pages. He sees a shot he likes and he designs a scene around it, and that's not how you should be directing these films. I mean, I will slag off. I said earlier, I enjoy the film thoroughly, but I'm not immune to the sort of awfulness of it. It's not a great film. I was entertained by it, but there's so much wrong with this. But there is some aspects I like, mainly the Batman stuff.
One thing I will raise as well, because you said about it's about 5 different films in one. It suffers from a lack of focus. There is no central focus there, and don't get me wrong, I do believe there is a good story in there somewhere,
but they don't do it.
Exactly. In all this mess, there is a decent Superman story about his struggles with the destruction of Metropolis and how he deals with the control of his powers, and then you tie Batman into that, and that could be a good movie. That could be a decent, say, 90 to 2 hour long film, and it would have worked. It would have had the themes, would have had strong characters, but because of the lack of focus, you don't get to have any of the strong character moments, and they just skip all of it just to get to more action beats.
Well, I was going to say it relies on action, but really it only relies on action in the last 20-25 minutes. The rest of the film is just exposition, but you could devote that time to characters, developing them more from Man of Steel, and how the film actually starts off. And I mean, I'll read if you need us to read the plot from IMDb in a movie called Batman v Superman. But I actually liked how they set up the feud between Bruce Wayne and Superman at the start. We get, I don't think it's spoilers because we see it in the trailer, but Bruce Wayne saving the girl from the destruction of Metropolis from the end of Man of Steel. And I was actually invested into it because I had a huge problem with the ending of Man of Steel, collateral damage and everything like that. But I thought it was really cool how they started the movie by referencing that. And I thought, they're going to develop this. Superman's going to learn not to take lives. Batman's going to teach him the respect for that, of how not to kill anyone. And if we're going to get into it more now, if we're going to start talking about Batman, because he's top villain in this movie, Batman's a straight up psychopath in this movie. He murders a whole lot of people, and I'm going to predict what you're going to say back to me, George, about the whole 1989 Batman being my favourite Batman film.
More than that, but yeah, that is a big part.
Keaton kills people in that movie, but it's a couple of people. Really the only one that comes to mind that actually did properly die was the one that he straps the bomb to in Batman Returns and throws him down the sewer.
The one he sets on fire when he accelerates off his car and he's burning to death.
He may have put himself out, we don't know, but in this it starts off, and I was expecting, we see this in the trailer too, Batman's going around branding people, which is like the mark of the bat, which was, I've never really seen that. I don't think it may have been in some graphic novels, but I've never seen that before. So already we're introduced to a much more brutal Batman that he does that. And then it like hits the halfway point in the movie and he's straight up killing people. And it's not like the whole Man of Steel thing where you said where he's knocking down skyscrapers and you say, oh, well, maybe the people got out of that. No, you see, I get Batman like blows up people. He shoots a lot of people. It completely misses the point of the character for me. Now, I'm going to let you talk now about Affleck and Batman, because I know you thought he was probably the best thing in this movie.
Right. Before I talk about Batfleck, I'm going to talk about this, and they don't make it clear again. This goes to the filmmaking. We all know that Robin's dead in this world. Obviously they show it. We know it as fans that he's dead, and I mean, Tate mentioned this on a Facebook chat the other day. This is a very different Batman, and Ben Affleck said that in all of his interviews. He's sort of war-torn, he's past it. When he kind of starts in this, they don't hint at it as such. I've had to work out in my head, which is frustrating because rather they said it. He's only just started branding people. I'm guessing this is his first sort of return as Batman since the Robin. We don't know. We don't know if they're going to talk about in Suicide Squad with the Joker, because we know he's going to be in that film. Based off this Batman, I cannot wait for him to grab hold of the Joker and just beat him mercilessly. I don't know what their plan is, but I think this is a Batman that now doesn't care, that wants to do what's right in his head. But again, they might not go down that route. This is just speculation, which is frustrating because he might have had the one rule until Robin died. We don't know how it's going to play or anything, but again, that might be in the R-rated extended cut. We don't know. There's certainly, now seeing that film, we know that a lot of the R-rated stuff is going to be Batman. But if I'm going to talk about him as a whole, I think he's the best Batman we've seen on screen, and I don't take that lightly. My profile pictures me and Christopher Nolan for a start. I'm a massive fan of the Christian Bale Batman. I think he's great. And I think with them, which is going to give him more credit, is that Nolan, as much as you hate the third one, Chris, and there are plot holes in the third one, he tells a great story and makes a great film with the character Batman. That's something incredibly hard to do about a guy that's dressed up as a bat. But in this, I see the potential in Affleck, and I see him deliver. There are some things that don't really work, but I love the Alfred stuff. I love the Batman. I love the design. This is going back to the style over substance. The costumes, Batman looks great. The armor Batman, the scene in Dark Knight Returns is great. The Batwing looks great. The Batmobile looked great. Granted, it's strapped to machine guns. I kind of got over that in the Arkham game, because in the newest one, you're in a tank. They pretend they're rubber bullets, but you're actually killing everyone. I enjoyed what Affleck does with it. I think he takes on the kind of grainy, sort of older looking guy. One thing I want to speak about is that when they were making the film, I've seen loads of stuff on set that he's got like grey hair on the side. Ben Affleck had a lot of input into his costume because apparently he's a massive comic book fan. Granted, Daredevil didn't work out well, and I think he shied away from everything after that. Costumes were his ideas for the Bruce Waynes, because he pulls off Bruce Wayne great, I thought. I thought he was a great Bruce Wayne. He's in this suit. He looks ripped. He's shredded. He's kind of got the whole character development perfect, and I think he looked the piece. But Affleck's had a lot of sort of, not credit as such, but behind the scenes, he's done a lot of the Batman stuff because he's going to be writing and directing his Batman film. And I dread to think what 100% Zack Snyder Batman would have looked like and acted like. And I think a lot of it's there. The killing stuff, I'm not as phased out as, because if it's going to work to the context, then great. If it's not, obviously we've got to wait and find out, which is a shame. But I've thoroughly enjoyed Ben Affleck. I thought he was outstanding in this, and the training montage that you see in the trailer is absolutely incredible. That's a lot to take in, by the way.
Yeah.
I want to hear yours, because we're different on Ben Affleck.
I've said before that Batman is my favourite fictional character in any form of media. That goes for novels, films, just everything. Batman has always been my favourite character, and most of the points you raised there were based on the visual of Batman. You said he looks the part, the car looks great, the wing looks great.
I thought Affleck gave a great performance, as did Jeremy Irons. I think he's took on the character well, and the source material, if you look at sort of, I know they're inspired by Dark Knight Returns. I didn't actually feel that, although they said it. It looks like it's there, but none of the story is anything like Dark Knight Returns, I thought, which was a bit of a shame. But no, I think Ben Affleck is a convincing Bruce Wayne, and as the Batman, I thought he was frightful. He's going to terrify children for years to come. This is not your sort of standard Batman. This is more of the 80s Frank Miller one that's just carnage, darkness, in the sense that he's like, he's had shit going on in his head. But I think Ben Affleck was great in this, and when they cast him, obviously there was the uproar, people got around him, but I think he delivers. But the design is a lot of it, but not to rule out the performance that Ben Affleck I thought was outstanding. He's the best thing about this film by a country mile.
He's definitely the best thing about this film. I'll agree with that. But with Affleck, he's a fantastic actor, even better director as well. But to me, he just wasn't given any compelling material to work with. There's a lot you can do with the Batman character. You can develop him more. To your point about the Nolan one, I wasn't too keen on his Batman, but at least the Batman in that had themes that he was dealing with that it linked with the character. For example, Dark Knight with the whole like walking across the line of whether he starts killing people or not. Does he become more extreme? Does he meet the Joker's level, or does he stay true to his vows and things like that? All that stuff's really interesting with the character. But to this, you really don't get much of a sense of a character with no one in this film. That goes for everyone. They're just it's exposition. There's no scenes where characters are talking or talking about their inner feelings or things like that. There's just nothing to his character. I found Ben Affleck quite bland in this movie, to be honest. He's very monotone. I guess you can pin that down to the Bruce Wayne character, but I wasn't given there's no like meat to work with in this movie. It's just you're seeing Batman on screen because he's Batman. There's just nothing underlying with his character. Same with Henry Cavill as Superman, and I defended him in Man of Steel. I thought he's a great actor. He looks the part of Superman, and I think given the material, he could do a lot with that character. But even with like Wonder Woman and things like that, there's just nothing going on. Visually, I can't fault the Batman in terms of the fighting style. It's the best fighting we've ever seen Batman do on screen. I thought that was incredible. The Batmobile looks great. The costume looks great. The Batcave looks fantastic, and sort of the short little clips we see of Gotham, it does look like a very visual, heightened comic book world that he lives in. But in terms of the Batman character himself, I just got nothing from it. I wasn't invested in anyone in this movie to the point where you get to the end fight and I didn't care. I didn't care if Batman lost. I didn't care if Superman lost or just any of the stakes in this movie. It was a complete failing at achieving any sort of stakes or character investment. What did you think?
Yeah,
of Affleck?
He is developed into a very fine actor in his age, and he's like a good cheese. And he got better with age. But I think his performance in the film, well, to be honest, he didn't give one. I don't think, because he had nothing to work with. There was no material there that he could really sink his teeth into.
Yeah.
At all. It's the same with Henry Cavill. He was sidelined. He was practically sidelined in this film. Almost completely.
Would you say it was more of a Batman film than a Superman film?
Yes, I would actually.
Yeah.
I really would. They're going on the fact that Batman is a really cool character. And I mean, there are certainly inklings of story ideas in there, but they just don't. None of it pays off, and the material they have to work with, these actors have to work with, is just dreadful. The dialogue is dreadful. Amy Adams practically didn't even need to be in the movie, and that you get all these fine actors to just basically stand around and do nothing. For the entire runtime until the end, and when there's a big fight, and that's it. And even then, it's just they don't actually do anything. It's more the computer-generated puppets getting flung around, causing all this mayhem and destruction. And to be honest, I'm not really mad at the film. I don't hate it.
You're just disappointed.
I was very bored.
Just apathetic towards it.
Yeah,
really.
it's just a nothing movie. It makes me feel nothing apart from boredom.
I think the real tell, I think we mentioned this before we hit record, is going to be David Ayer's Suicide Squad. If that is great, it will be, in my opinion, the first new DC movie that is great. But we will know that it's a fault of Zack Snyder and that team. And his failure to direct character.
Yeah.
If Suicide Squad is great, then I think maybe Warner Brothers, based on the reviews of this movie, may reconsider having him direct Justice League, and they might bring in someone else. Is it too late? Has he already started?
Shooting in April, it's all done. Maybe part 2. We can pray.
Yeah.
Shooting back to back, but I think they've got too much set in stone for.
Well, that's it. I was
Well,
thinking,
yeah, you don't kind of want to get into the whole Hobbit thing where Guillermo del Toro was practically almost going to shoot the movie, and he had all the concepts, and then Peter Jackson just came on at the very last second
to
and
patch it all up. Yeah,
had to like start shooting immediately.
They had 4 weeks to find a director, whereas this, I think, the whole script of Justice League is all going to be done via the Zack Snyder. You know what the storyboards are going to look great, but
material, yeah, set up. It's
struggling is that I know they're doing a part 1 and 2, but they call this film Dawn of Justice, and actually I can't really say it yet, spoiler wise.
Dawn.
yeah, exactly.
It's kind of, I don't know how they're going to handle a Justice League film, because parts make sense considering what they've got to do in part 1 now. That's as much as I can say at the minute, but I think going back to the Superman being sidelined and this being a Batman film, I feel like they're both sidelined. Like, you'll get these bits of Bruce Wayne or Batman, then he disappears for 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Then you'll get still. There's probably, I'd love to see someone counting the screen time of Lex Luthor compared to Henry Cavill compared to Affleck, because Lex Luthor's playing one character. Obviously, with Batman, there's a Bruce Wayne and a Batman scene, so there's almost twice as much. But I feel like Lex Luthor's in it as much. But again, it's going back to trying to do 5 films at once. Henry Cavill sidelined in what should have been his sequel, and I do enjoy this film, but I was originally in that sort of halfway there, like, should have done Man of Steel 2 before kickstarting all of this. I mean, they were desperate to get out. They could have filmed Man of Steel back to back with the Batman v Superman. Do you know what I mean? I think this was originally, they announced this at Comic-Con a month after Superman came out. I still think they purely announced Batman in this because Man of Steel didn't make the money that they wanted it to, and they know with Batman it's the billion-dollar film.
It's going to be interesting to see how much this one makes, because I think based on the title alone and sort of the advertising, which, to be honest, I think has been very falsely advertised for this movie, I think it's going to definitely make a lot opening weekend. I know you've said it's made quite a lot already based just on the midnight screening, but I do hope that this movie kind of drops off, because personally I won't see this movie willingly again until the R-rated cut comes out and I can see what was added back and what was cut out of it. But shall we get into Superman now? Because we've talked a bit about Batman, and I think we do need to somewhere address Superman in what should be his movie. So building on from Man of Steel, again, I don't have anything against Henry Cavill. I think he looks the part. I think he could turn in a brilliant Clark Kent performance and Superman performance if he wanted to. Again, the material's not really there. But they really don't do anything with his character again. One of my problems with Man of Steel is he doesn't learn anything from that movie. There's the whole thing where, do you take a life to save millions of people? Which the theme was there, but I don't think it was completely developed on. I know that you, George, and Tate disagree with me on that. But I was hoping for his next one to sort of step up the game a bit, develop the character more. Let's see him at the Daily Planet. Let's see him saving people. And we do get a little bit of a montage of that in this movie. But for the most part, the character's just so forgettable. There's no development in terms of anything with him, not with Lois Lane, not with his work life or his secret identity or saving people. It's just, he's just sort of there with all these events going on around him that are very much out of his control. And I was hoping that in this film he was going to learn a lesson, as I said earlier, with Batman teaching him. They would immediately start off as enemies, but then as the film develops, Batman would teach him, the ways to respect people, to not take a life, to strive to... It's like Daredevil, and we'll have a review out for that next week, but the whole Matt Murdock thing in that, where he's wrestling with the idea of, does he match sort of more Punisher style, or does he stay true to law and justice? And I think that would have been an interesting progression. It would have been acknowledging the faults of Man of Steel with the Superman character, and it may have been drifting in more towards the Superman that we know and the ideals he stands for. But as of this movie and how it sort of ultimately pans out, it's a whole load of nothing again. And it's frustrating because the opening scene, as I said, with Bruce Wayne saving people, I thought that was a really interesting setup. And the first sort of 5 to 10 minutes of this movie, I was expecting it to go that route, but none of the characters learn anything at the end of the movie. There are no themes, there are no lessons. it's a mess of a movie with a loud action beat at the end with no investment or lead up to that.
Yeah, I mean, I know you'll disagree, George, but I think Superman can be a very interesting character.
It's difficult. It is difficult to watch, I think. But
the thing is, where's this? I'm more interested in this. I mean, you hated the Zod neck snap. I liked that because that was something different because you had to kill him. And as much as a lot of people do hate that, it made sense to the film and what they did with it. And I liked in this the Batman. Well, not Batman. Superman. He's kind of confused. He looks confused by the public reaction towards him of what he does. And I really sort of liked the dynamic of the court case that, you know, they were not trying to. It wasn't really clear what they were doing. They were trying to prosecute him or arrest him or something like that. But I liked that his actions did have consequences, and you know there was a lot of dead people that helped having that Bruce Wayne prologue scene. But they don't deliver on that because that is strong enough to have a film out of it. As much as DC people hate compared to Marvel, the Winter Soldier takes almost a tiny sort of thing that, you know, don't trust anyone, and they've built a story off that. With this, they can do the consequences of what you did, and you know, there's the montage of him saving people or doing things, which kind of works. But then they'll just sideline him and disappear and have a bizarre nightmare.
Yeah,
it's
I think what this movie fails to do. It fails to have fun with the characters. Like the whole themes about the court case and things like that. That could be interesting as a theme, as long as it's a theme. What seems to me is Zack Snyder says, I've come up with this really interesting critique on Superman, and it feels like you're just watching a video essay that someone's written, like a dissertation on the deconstruction of Superman. And you've got Superman and Batman, have fun with it, make a Superman. You can still have these themes developed and interweaved to the movie, but when every line of dialogue is grim, serious, deconstruction of these heroes, you're just kind of watching it and thinking, you know, lighten up a little bit. Like, you can still make it mature, but just a little bit of levity somewhere. Come on, anything, you know.
I mean, there are some very, very interesting Superman stories out there, like Red Sun.
That's fantastic. Yeah,
and it's kind of the line of distinction whether he much the same as Batman, and when he crosses that line, there's kind of no going back for him. But also, one of the interesting things about Superman is that he is essentially the last of his kind. And how does he deal with all of this Jesus Christ-like weight put on his shoulders? And essentially, he is a regular guy in Clark Kent. And how does that person take on this deity-like form? And that's kind of how I like Superman. And I do think he can be a very interesting character, but in this, he's just got nothing. There's nothing there that really makes you go, oh yes, that's yes, that's a very, very good deconstruction of the Superman character. Because I mean, he is pretty cookie cutter, and he does have all these different powers. But one thing I would like to address is critical response. And I know this is kind of a different section altogether, but I'd like to address critical response to this and in saying that it's not a very fun movie, and it isn't. By no stretch of the imagination is it fun. But I think what they're trying to say is that fun is kind of a not the best word to use. It's lacking in jokes. And I mean, Christopher Nolan Batman's had plenty of jokes.
Yeah.
But you still had a good solid idea and story in that. And it was pretty dark. It got incredibly dark at times. But it just seems like a no jokes policy of having, oh, we're just going to have an incredibly dark and brooding Batman that when he's in Bruce Wayne form just doesn't have any of the quirky billionaire mannerisms at all. And
you want to talk quirky billionaire mannerisms?
Oh,
Shall we talk about DC's attempt at comic relief in this movie? Then I think it's about time we address this. Lex Luthor as Jesse Eisenberg.
Do you want me to start?
Go for it, because I need to formulate.
This is going to be hilarious. When they cast him, I was fuming because it wasn't Bryan Cranston, as many people were.
I don't know if you heard, but apparently he was in running for it.
Yeah, that's why everyone was going mental, because you know, Breaking Bad already is Lex Luthor.
Remember that there was a YouTube video that came out, and I think you referenced it yesterday, a fan-made trailer for it.
Yeah, I remember this when they announced it. It was amazing.
It's awesome.
Go on, when the trailers came out, I was hating the Lex Luthor stuff so much. Like, Jesse Eisenberg is one of them actors that he has this face that you kind of just want to like put against like a brick wall or something. He is though, like, he's just, you know, everyone loves Zombieland. I like 3 of the characters in Zombieland, not the 4th one, who's the main one. He's just, I hate him in everything. Then in this, I don't know what it is. I hated him in the trailers, all of it. I don't know why. But I really
don't say it! Don't say it!
Oh, end the live stream, right?
I think it was hilarious in the sense that it wasn't intentionally hilarious. It was just one of them where everything he seemed to be doing so serious, like it seemed like the actor had put on a serious face to do this role, which was literally like someone on meth, like a court case or something. I think it's, in terms of what he does, I can't really talk about it as such, but I think he's a better villain than almost every single Marvel one there's been. Also in terms of what because when you seriously think about it, as the role of villain, you hate him, but he's doing the job of being a villain if you hate him. I mean, we love villains normally, but he kind of works to the film, and he's something that so doesn't fit in with DC that it just works in this. And I'm guessing he's the instigator to the whole of the Justice League now, because what they do with him, which we can talk about later, it was just, I don't know if it was one of them where it was so awful it was great with Lex Luthor, or the fact that I genuinely think he was a good villain. Also, P.S. Hans Zimmer's soundtrack song for him.
No. The soundtrack is a whole different kettle of fish.
Soundtrack in this film, you guys have hated it, but he literally has a Jack Sparrow song on a piano.
It makes sense because he's kooky as fuck in this movie.
I
think it worked better than, because it was just so different to what anyone would have thought, and it's so different to what you expect from DC, because the bold, hench, big Lex Luthor would have been too DC, whereas this, he was just like making weird noises and flicking his hair back and grinning and all this weird stuff. I think he worked as a villain. I was so shocked that.
No.
Because if you look at how much I've hated on him and everything, I was one of the last people you think that would hate on this. I mean, he just steals every scene.
He was Jamie Foxx's Electro in Amazing Spider-Man. He was Edward Nygma.
He was Brad Pitt in 12 Monkeys. Oh my god! I think
it's memorable. I think the main word is memorable, because I don't know how to describe it.
He went to the rehearsal. But this is probably how it panned out. They were all sitting round for the table read, and then in comes Jesse Eisenberg, sits down, and then starts doing all this, like all this crazy, and then they're just going. It's okay, and it just felt like Zack Snyder didn't really know how to sort of direct. He was just left to his own devices, and then he just thought, oh, you know what would be a good character.
Do you know how this went down? Zack Snyder was in one night and thought, you know what, Social Network's on TV, I'm going to watch this, and they just took Mark Zuckerberg's character and put it in this, made him slightly
turned
more
it up to 11.
Yeah, cranked it up to 11, made him more twitchy. Okay, going back to when he was initially cast, I was like you, George. I was like, what the hell is DC thinking in casting the guy from Zombieland? Like, I like him in Zombieland. I think he's sort of like Michael Cera. He's very much
I love Michael Cera.
One character.
He plays the same person.
He plays himself in everything he's in. But for me, he worked in Social Network and he worked in Zombieland. They're really the only two things I can mention that I liked him in. But to me, in this, I saw it in the trailers, and then I was watching some early reviews, and I was trying not to let them influence my opinion too much, but they were saying that if you had problems with him in the trailer, you're going to have them all the way through the movie. And I thought, well, maybe that's probably not true. Maybe he has something more to his character. But, oh, man, I was not expecting quite this level of zaniness in him.
When you talk about Zane, oh, and you every time, I know you sort of said this last night, because we went to see it with two other people, and you said that where there was one bit where you turned to us all, and we were just doing head in hands whenever he was on the screen.
Yeah, there was a scene where I don't want to go to spoilers, but he's having a confrontation with Superman. I'll just say that. We know that's in the movie. And he was just going ridiculous with it. I just had my head in my hands like this, and I looked over, and all four of us were just completely in unison in this one position during this scene. The tone of his character, I know you're saying it was a bold choice for DC, but to me, it just didn't work in the tone of the rest of the movie. Every time he came on screen, he snapped me immediately out of the movie because he belonged in a 90s cheesy superhero film and not this gritty take of one. I think if you had a more serious, say, Bryan Cranston, for example, as Lex, the movie would have still been incredibly boring.
But at least you would have had Bryan Cranston.
You would have had an intimidating bad guy. I was never at least one point intimidated or scared by this guy because I was just laughing at him.
You're not meant to. He's hilarious in it.
But I don't think Lex is meant to. He was playing it like the Joker. But I think when you're going to get to the Joker, even if they ever get to the Riddler, I think, for example, there's one bit in the movie, not really a spoiler, I think he's talking about time or something like that. And he was reminding me of a character of the Mad Hatter from Batman, one of his villains. And I think he would have been great.
Mad Hatter from Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, I think he would have been great as like Jervis Tetch or Edward Nygma as the Riddler or someone more zany. But I just don't think that was the tone for Lex. And throughout the movie, as well, they keep referring to his father, the original Lex. Now, I was thinking maybe they're setting this up where in future sequels, if people don't like Jesse Eisenberg's take, they can just bring in his dad and have like a Bryan Cranston, although how Bryan Cranston would ever have spawned this little shit as his offspring. But I think they could bring in that more imposing Lex if they wanted to. But sort of how when it goes into the whole shaving the head thing, then I don't think they're going to do it. I think they're just going to stick. But he didn't work for me. He made us laugh for all the wrong reasons. We were laughing at his performance. But he just wasn't a compelling bad guy for me. He really wasn't.
Future films, maybe, I don't know if it's a spoiler, but is it a spoiler? Do I really care? I don't think it's a spoiler. He's kind of, now he's bold at the end, because there's promotional pictures of him being bold. That's not a spoiler. Maybe he's going to get ripped between now and...
I don't think he will.
No.
It's under 2 trailers. It's the only way it can work. So if they're doing under 2 trailer...
It's going to be about as big as Superman.
His rip suit and himself. That's just going to be like him. I can't really say more without being a spoiler, but
I really want Jesse Eisenberg, the big green Lex Luthor power armor he builds in like the comic book. I want to see him in that. Just Jesse Eisenberg's tiny, weedy little head on this big hulking Hulkbuster-like armor. It would be amazing.
See, that's the thing. I don't know if I liked him as a villain because it was just so bizarre and ridiculous and weird. But in terms of villainous deeds, what he does is incredibly good as a villain. That sounds so weird.
What was his motivation, though?
Well, that's the thing. It's not clear again. It's the lack of story, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, for some reason, he doesn't like Batman. For some reason, he doesn't like Superman. That's it.
I guess you just chalk it up to like a power play, shits and giggles. He just got bored one day and wanted to stir the pot between Batman and Superman.
Exactly, and again, it's not clear, but the deeds he does, again, I'll go into some spoilers, but there's some pretty villainous shit, and I'm throwing my head back to Marvel where, in theory, he does more than Ultron. And okay, everyone's got mixed thoughts on that. I'd say he's probably the best villain since Loki. Because again, there's just like a lack of villains. He's not 2-dimensional. I think that's what it is. He's just something different. And
I found him incredibly two-dimensional. Like, he was two-dimensional in his quirkiness and lack of motive. He was just kind of. Shall we get on to the? I don't even know really if it's a new character because she's only in a few scenes. But Wonder Woman, no character in this whole movie. If you were not a comic book fan, you wouldn't know who she just shows up. She's just there. She's sort of there at parties, and that's all. And then she just this again. This isn't a spoiler because the damn trailer spoiled the movie. But she just shows up at the end, does a little bit in the fight, and that's it. To me, this was a fault of where some people were saying it was bold of DC to go the opposite to the Marvel movie route, and where Marvel set up each individual hero and then have your team-up movie. I mean, they're doing the same with the Netflix TV shows with Daredevil, Jessica Jones, and then they'll eventually get to Defenders. This DC just went, no, just dump everyone in this movie and get them out there. Some people were saying that was a good thing because DC's heroes, in terms of on the big screen, aren't as well known as Marvel or marketable, so you need to get them in the consciousness of the audience and then you can branch out from there. But especially with the character of Wonder Woman, I was thinking like I'd missed a whole chunk of her backstory. Yeah. I felt like I needed a solo movie with her so I knew what she was about, and then even if she was only in this film for like 10 minutes, you would have at least had yourself for her and you know her personality, everything like that. Again, there's just nothing to her. She's just there because she's Wonder Woman. She's dressed like Wonder Woman. She does Wonder Woman things. But if you asked me to describe a character in this, I couldn't do it. Yeah. I would just say she's Wonder Woman. You know, there's nothing to her. And in terms of her actual performance, Gal Gadot, whatever people want to call her, when she was initially cast, I was really kind of worried because I think she was in the Fast and Furious movies, or a few of them at least. She's mostly a model, I think, than an actress. In terms of a performance, I don't think she was awful. I think she can honestly turn in a really great performance of Wonder Woman, but we just didn't see enough of her, I don't think, for me to make that call. Like the tell will be.
Well, yeah, you can't really make that call because
she's not in it.
Exactly. You can't make a call about whether she's going to be good because, well, there's nothing really there to work with, and it's the same with everybody.
Like, she pulled off the sort of Amazon warrior, which you see in the sort of trailer in the fight, but that's sort of 5 minutes max. Now, she was only there to set up her film, which they set up. Too in your face, they set up that film. Literally, they specifically referenced the sort of, if anyone doesn't know, which we will do, it's set during World War One. There are at least 3 scenes where World War One is referenced with her there. So it's kind of like, okay, we get you setting up your film. Oh, you're saying it again? You're saying it again? And time will tell when we judge her because she might be great in Wonder Woman film. I hope she is. It'll be an interesting character to see on the screen, especially in the sort of war era. She might be awful, but she's not in it enough to sort of do anything. She is literally just there to set up that film. The sort of the whole going into spoiler. This is kind of my last like spoiler-free verdict. I'd say we've crossed off pretty much everything, haven't we? Because it's been ages and we haven't gone into spoilers. So
we could talk about the soundtrack briefly. We'll save Doomsday for the spoilers. That's not me spoiling. He was in trailer 2. Come on, we'll save that for the spoiler section. But we'll mention the soundtrack and then go into spoilers after that.
I would say with her, they announced her being in the film about 6 months after they announced Batman would be in the film. So, why did they announce that so early if she's going to be in it for so little? I mean, it's just like you should have left it.
And I think because you didn't have any setup for their characters or any kind of development, that one shot that's in the trailer where you've got the DC Trinity all lined up, preparing for battle, that should have been a moment, an iconic moment in comic book history where we finally get to see these 3 characters on screen together. Hell, even with Batman and Superman, and to me there was never that sense of awe or...
I thought it was cool. When they kind of united into the fight, her theme's really cool by Hans Zimmer, something different. I'll give them credit on that, but I was pretty, not pumped as such, but I'd say like that was a really cool moment. Everyone doesn't really care about Superman itself, but it was pretty cool seeing them 3 fighting together. That was more of the sequence. But again, that's just like the Avengers. The Avengers has that great shot where they go through all 6 of the characters fighting. They do something similar to this, so it's something I've seen just with different characters. But I thought it was cool. But again, I'm excited to see well, not excited as such, but I want to see how they do this Justice League, because they've struggled to have 3 characters in a 2.5-hour film. So I don't know how they're going to do 7.
I don't think they're going to be able to do it, but yeah, we need to get to spoilers pretty quickly. We'll mention the soundtrack. So this one is Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL. Junkie XL's, I don't know if he's a protege of Hans Zimmer, but I know he's done a lot of collaborations with him in the past. The soundtrack, again, like Man of Steel, just kind of blended into the background for me. It all sort of merged into one. It's very noisy. It's very drum heavy. You linked me, actually, just like one of the tracks off YouTube of Batman's new theme. I think it was like a 16-minute long track or something like that. It's the whole Batman suite. That on its own was fantastic. I love the new Batman theme. It was very much, to me, reminded me a lot of the Batman Forever and Batman and Robin main themes. I forgot the name of the composer of those, but it definitely had that. It had a few Danny Elfman elements to it as well. And I really like that, but to me, I never really heard that theme much in the movie. It all sort of merged into one with every other song that was in the movie. And it's a shame, because I thought that was a brilliant Batman theme. Superman's theme from the end credits of Man of Steel never appeared in the film. I was really disappointed about that. You had the few little, you had the piano song that featured in Man of Steel. That was nice to hear again, but now that we're into the second one, and sort of, I guess you could sort of symbolize and say that the theme kicks in the credits when he properly becomes Superman in Man of Steel. I wanted to hear that all the time, and when Superman's saving people in that one montage, or when he's flying into battle, if you'd have had that, I think that would have definitely improved the moment slightly, because the music definitely does influence the visuals. But I know you really like the soundtrack. You can show it off. I know you've got the vinyl as well, which does look really nice, but the soundtrack just didn't do anything for me at all, in all honesty. It was just there.
See, I liked it, and what you kind of said, which was, I don't know if it's ironic or not, is you talk about the lack of themes, but there's a clear Lex Luthor theme, there's a clear Wonder Woman theme now. And it's weird with the Batman, because I don't listen to soundtracks before the films. However, that one track I did listen to, and they include it, but it's so, like, it's just there, like, it doesn't stand out. But I think that's because at the moment there's not really a sort of Batman scene as such for that to play. Granted, we'll probably see a lot more of that. I'm guessing Junkie XL will go out and do the Batman film. I'm guessing Zimmer will probably do Wonder Woman, or maybe Justice League, or maybe they'll keep uniting together. But I really enjoyed the soundtrack on this. I don't know why I love the Lex Luthor theme so much. Again, it just plays on to like the sort of what the fuck is this sort of degree of the film.
It's a bit of a mix of Jack Sparrow and Disco Blake from Sherlock.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah, and it was exactly like those two merged. But the sort of the introduction credit scene, basically is the murder of the 2 Waynes. Everyone knows this in the films and the trailers. That's something I'll give the film credit for, was that we knew the origin story was coming. It made sense to have it in the opening scene, because you don't need to drag that out. I think that's merely just to introduce anyone that hasn't seen the Batman film before. I thought very, very well done, except the bizarre ending. But the music that's played in that was incredible.
I always think, I've always said, and then I'll let you jump in. So just a really quick point about that, about origin stories. I hate this mentality of reboots coming out and saying like, oh, we don't need to tell the origin again. I always think that if you're starting from the ground up with a new reboot, you should always do the origin story, because if a new audience person comes onto it, if it's a new generation, say with Spider-Man, you look at the Sam Raimi ones, that has the origin for most part of the first one. And then Amazing Spider-Man came out, and I know a lot of people were critical how most of that movie was, again, just another origin story. But I like that, because if you're going to have a new person watching it, I think it is important to always know the origin and to see the origin, because maybe you could do something slightly different with it, but I think it's always a good foundation for whatever new incarnation you do. So I was happy to see, when I heard they were filming, I think some leaked images came out or something that said that the murder of the Waynes was happening, and I was pleased that we were going to get another one. I know a lot of people were really critical, like, oh, do we really need to see the Waynes get gunned down again? I mean, Gotham did it as well, the TV show. But yeah, Tom, what did you think of the soundtrack? Then we'll get into the spoiler section after that.
I've got one word, and it's the same word I'll use for the film itself. Boring. But, yeah. And I can describe the soundtrack and the film with a series of grunts. Ugh.
That's pretty much it. I mean, it's just drums. That was it for me.
Yeah.
But so we'll go into overall opinions really quickly. But if you haven't seen the movie, do stick around for our spoiler section. I know we've been going for a while just on spoiler free, but this is sort of like the big superhero movie event of the year. I'm sure Civil War will take over that probably, but we have a lot to discuss in the spoilers, so we'll just go over it quickly now. Overall opinions, George, would you recommend Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice?
I recommend you watch it because it's so divisive. I think everyone's going to have their own opinions of the film. I think it's worth watching because it's the first time you see these characters unite on screen, and it's worth it for the Ben Affleck stuff. If you want an action film, it's got the action stuff. It's like Man of Steel. It's just some people hate it, some like it. You can only make your mind up once you've seen it.
Yeah. I would not recommend this even to people I hate. I thought it was incredibly awful. Just why? Why? You just want to grab Zack Snyder by his little stupid man-child face and just scream in it and go, why? God, boring.
To me, I don't know what this was intended. Like Batman and Superman. Can you imagine like a legion of kids that grew up with like Superman and Batman and really want to see them in a new movie? Like, yay, take me to see the new Batman movie, and you sit them in this almost 3 hour pondering, deconstructing of. It's like no,
it's not even made for kids, is it? Because
no.
There's so much talking and exposition, and they just dump it on the screen and nothing happens. The kid's gonna sit there being incredibly more fidgety than I ever was in the cinema.
I was ready to walk out if this wasn't, because I've got to support my boy Batman. Okay, so for the good and the bad, I have to be there for him and weather the storm.
Odd one out.
Yeah, the Daredevil. Yeah. See, I don't know if I'd recommend this movie because if you're a superhero fan, if you're a DC fan, Batman, Superman, you're going to go and see this movie regardless, and nothing I can say will change your mind to see it. I think you need to see it and just formulate your own opinion on it. I know that's a cliche thing to say, but as you said, George, it is so divisive that personally there was nothing in it for me. If you just love action, maybe
going to get
not even action though. That's one thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm in this weird state of limbo of how to recommend this movie to anyone. I probably wouldn't. It's a bad movie. It's a flawed movie. I would probably suggest wait for the R-rated cut and see if it flows better, if it adds a lot more material into it and more depth and things like that. I don't think it will, and even then, it's half hour being added back in.
Well, at least you can pause it.
It's 3 hours. It's long. I don't know. I honestly don't know. I hated the movie. There was no positive thing really I can say about it, in all honesty. So for that reason, I wouldn't recommend it. But if you're a superhero fan, you're kind of gonna go and see it anyway. And I guess the novelty of seeing the characters for a shred of a second might be okay. But even as a Batman v Superman film, I think it's poorly advertised because the Ving of Superman happens almost 2 hours into the movie, and it lasts for about 2 minutes, and the trailers make it look like the whole film is building up to that.
I think if you go into it with a group, but if you see it on your own, you're gonna just be you'll have nothing to really
contemplate your own mortality.
If you go see it with a group of friends, you can maybe have a laugh at it because of how just dreadful.
Well, we were laughing at Lex, but we went there because we knew it was going to be bad, more or less. We knew it was going to be disappointing.
Our expectations were low going in.
Probably lower than your expectations. We went into it.
Everyone knew that, I mean, in my set of quotes, everyone takes the piss. Everyone knew that this film was going to be a train wreck. And everyone wanted to watch it because it was going to be a train wreck. And it kind of is a train wreck. But I, for some reason, really enjoyed this train wreck.
But you thought it was an entertaining train wreck?
I was entertained. Bring out Maximus.
But I guess that'll do it for our spoiler-free section now. We've been going a while already, but now we're going to get into the sort of deconstruct it more, get into it, and talk about, well, I think we're still going to maintain our negative levels, but hopefully we can make it a little bit entertaining. So we're going to go more or less point for point as the movie unfolds and just talk about every single scene. So, as we said earlier, the opening scene of the movie is the origin of Batman, and I believe the one playing Thomas Wayne played the comedian.
Yeah, I was going to mention earlier. Very cool little cameo.
Yeah.
This is one of my favorite scenes of the film. It's arguably maybe one of my favorite scenes of sort of Batman itself. However, it just finished so stupid, and I actually got angry, and then the anger turns to laughter because
we were laughing as well.
At this point, if everyone's watching, you've probably seen this if it's spoilers. When he begins to fucking fly because there's a bat swirling him. I'm sorry, but when bats swirl you, I haven't experienced it, but I know I'm not going to go. How long would you reckon that gap was? About 20, 30 foot?
Yeah, easily. Did they lift him back out of the hole then? Is that how that was going to go?
You just fly over to his parents' gravestones or something.
Then they just completely disregard it and say, "Oh, it's a dream."
Well, that was it. I know, I didn't come to the fact that it was a dream, but how it sets up, it's like, this is the origin. This is how it exactly happened. Running away from the funeral and falling down the hole, that is what actually happened. It's him seeing the bats and them swarming him, that's what actually happened. And then he starts flying.
And he's like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, going into the light. It was just so on the nose, and it was making me think of the scene from Batman Begins where Bruce overcomes his fears, goes into the cave, you have the epic bat swarming him scene. Would that scene have been better if Christian Bale just starts levitating like Magneto? It was ridiculous. It was so ridiculous.
Soundtrack, best song of the whole soundtrack is that scene. That was really, really, really well done. It was just, I think it was the montage cut. It worked until the fucking flying scene.
Yeah. It should have just ended where the bat swarmed him. In all honesty, that's where it should have ended.
But I really dig that scene.
It was a very different opening as well, like with the font and everything, how it was kind of.
He knows.
Very different.
People just decide like Watchmen. The Watchmen credit seems great. The sort of montage.
Yeah, one of the best bits of the film.
And if he's going to do stuff like this, the Justice League film, well, obviously, spoilers. They haven't fucking founded the Justice League. Maybe in Justice League Part 2, the opening montage is going to be the Justice League like doing shit.
Yeah, because we can't just.
They can't do any of that now because they fucked it in this.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The last thing I'll say about the origin as well is I mentioned it earlier, but the Mask of Zorro poster on the theatre, I thought that was brilliant because that's the movie that Bruce did.
Yeah.
Batman, and I think this is actually the second kind of Batman origin story shot that Zack Snyder's ever done, because there's a shot in Watchmen where Night Owl, it's in the opening credits, where Night Owl's punching someone, and in the background you see a young Bruce Wayne and his parents outside the movie theatre. So that was pretty decent. I'm not sure if that was Mask of Zorro too in that one. But then we sort of get on to, we've got prologue written down. So I'm assuming this is the Man of Steel tie-in. Again, I was on board with it. I thought that this is it's acknowledging the faults of Man of Steel. It's going to develop on the themes more. We get to see Bruce Wayne being the selfless guy, saving people, having respect for human life, at least at this point of the movie. One thing I did find hilarious, though, was the where he's calling on the phone to the guy in Wayne Tower saying, evacuate the building now. And then it cuts to the guy in the office building, and the Doomsday Machine, the world building engine, whatever it's called, is right next to the window. And he hasn't evacuated the building at that point. Yeah, it's just like, oh yeah, I see it. Yeah, we'll evacuate the building right now. And then he calls again later and he hasn't done it. What's this guy playing at?
And it set up a subplot which kind of worked, but it was pretty cool seeing Bruce Wayne wanting to save people. He gave the instruction to him. You could see that he was ripped as shit, and that he cared. And that sets up.
The scene where he runs into the smoke was epic. Yeah. Like, everyone's running in the opposite direction. He's the only one running into it. That was awesome.
From his perspective, when he looks up and sees them fighting, that perfectly sets up the Batman v Superman half, and the aftermath to follow of. Everyone's died. Is he to blame? Because from that, you should run with those two, but then it just expands into the 4 or 5 films they're trying to do. I was saying 2 months ago that I really think it'd be cool if they did a flashback to Joker killing Robin or something like that. Thank God they didn't, because then that'd be like a sick different story they've got going.
Yeah, and I think that'd just be too much. Like, I think they said in the original script Joker and Riddler were going to be in this, and I think there's one bit where you see Batman with a gun and there's like pillars and you can see a question mark graffitied into it that might be a link to the Riddler. Then we've got the Africa shit written down. And this is immediately, I don't know if it was the same with you, where the movie just stopped for me. I was like, we had a sort of cool origin with a ridiculous ending, granted, some very nice cinematography in it. We were setting up, developing the ending of Man of Steel, and then we get into pointless Lois Lane's subplot, doesn't need to be in this movie. And
trying to gets a bullet because of this Africa stuff, and she gets captured because she's the damsel in distress. She always needs saving, and Superman just get, and then the guys, the internal security kill basically everyone to try and it's established later on that it's Lex sort of pitting these two heroes against each other, and everyone blames Superman for all this stuff that happens in Africa. He just flies down when Lois is captured by this warlord. And I mean, talk about not killing people.
Yeah.
He just flies him straight through some concrete.
Yeah.
And you just go, what on earth?
Well, that's what I was thinking. Like, I thought, oh, Superman's learnt now to have respect for
no,
people.
obviously not.
One of my problems with Man of Steel as well at the end is that after he snaps Zod's neck and is absolutely distraught by it, immediately the scene after, it's like it never happened, and there's no way. So I thought maybe this one he's still living with it. You mentioned earlier about him being the last son of Krypton now. I thought he was still going to be dealing with that fact, and he would have some respect for life now, but he just flies super speed into this guy taking him out the building. That was like, oh, shit, Superman, calm down.
His aim has to be absolutely astonishingly good for him to not hit Lois and send her flying and basically killing her.
The whole scene made no sense, and this is the first I've seen of the R-rated cut where I don't know Batman as well as, I'm sorry, not Batman, Superman as well as everyone else. There's a character called Jimmy Olsen. Apparently, it was meant to be him originally in that scene, in the photographer. Something's going to happen with this in this R-rated cut. It was cut out. Apparently, this R-rated cut's got a lot more stuff in this Africa shit to make it I'm guessing to make it make sense.
I don't think it needs to be in the movie. It's just a plot.
It sets up stuff at the end of the film. You think it's like the intro to Superman in this for the film, and actually they then come back to it later on, and it's like, okay, so that's not been tied up or it hasn't been shown properly. But I'm guessing this is the stuff that R-rated cut. They filmed too much, and they've clearly, I don't know if it was the script that was wrong or the editing was on drugs or just these ludicrous post-production ideas. But it just was weird. Lois Lane should have died in that. How on earth? I mean, whenever he flies, you see these little stones go past him anyway, don't they? Like, the reason he levitates soil off a coffin from the inside. He just he flies, and from that speed, would she not be pushed back from the force of it or something? Sounds he flies, but now she's fine because she pulled her hands down.
But he was like still holding her, and her body was about halfway between this guy, and he was like grabbing hold of it. So he had to be.
Why didn't he just laser him?
Yeah, no, this is what
laser his face.
Yeah, Superman is awful at making decisions. Like, I know you like the ending of Man of Steel with Zod when he's got them pinned in the corner like the Goldfinger. Yeah, but he could have flew him back up out the ceiling. He could have covered his eyes with the. He's terrible at making decisions. He's got loads of things he could have done. We established that he can do that super dash thing like he does when he goes through the smoke later on in the fight. Why don't you just do that and punch him in the face? Just done. But it was one of my many problems with this. But this is where the movie started to really drag for me, because it was just a collection of random scenes together. Also, you can do a drinking game with this movie. Take a shot every time the movie cuts to black. As an editor, that was the one transition I noticed in this movie. It was just cut to black, few seconds, fade into next scene.
It'll be the staple of these films. The wipe is the staple of Star Wars.
Yeah.
Just cut to black.
And then, sort of as the movie develops, we start playing really a lot on the themes more. We've got that statue of Superman, and the guy who was one of the casualties. Well, he lost his legs in the Metropolis attack. He spray paints false god on him, and this is where they start to kick him with the whole deconstruct of the Superman character. And
no, that was a shot that was in the trailer, but wasn't even in the movie. That full where the very first trailer.
Oh, the camera pan into the statue. Yeah.
And then it just lights up with the false god, and that in itself is a fucking good idea. You could have stuck with that, him being a false deity, but no, it's only one person that kind of thinks that and writes it on the statue. And why they built a statue of Superman in the middle of Metropolis, even though he fucking destroys it. Completely levels it.
Who commissioned that statue? I want to know who built it.
Well, clearly it was probably the senator in it.
Oh yeah.
And then she goes, well, maybe he isn't. It took them 2 years to go, well, actually, Superman might not be very good.
But that when we get we'll talk about the saving people a bit now. It's a very, very short montage, but I was just sitting like this in the cinema. I was just slumped down, just taking in this dreary mess of a movie, and then we get a TV report where it's like burning building and people are trapped inside and Superman flies off. So I sit up like, oh my god, we're actually going to see Superman save people. I know that a burning building's the go-to in every superhero movie, it seems. I think like Spider-Man, the Raimi trilogy, had a burning building in every single one. But I was like, yes, we're going to see Superman do something. And it cuts and he's just walking out with her. I was like, we could have seen that. This movie really needed an action beat at this point. And to have Superman saving people would have been great. And we see him like dragging a boat in the Arctic, it looks like, with people on it. It's nice that they're actually showing him save people, but it's none of the... You don't feel anything. You don't feel any sense of achievement or heroism when he does it. It's just... He did it. He's not... There are no heroes in this. There are no good people in this. Batman's a psychopath and Superman's just a crazed madman just leveling cities all the way through the movie. Anyway, we've been talking a lot. George, bring up a point you want to talk about in spoilers, and we'll get into that.
Are we still doing in order A to Z? Because I want to bring.
Just go for a moment. You want to talk about? We need to talk about the weird dream sequence as well at some point.
The whole court subplot, which I really liked. So basically, off all the trailers, they've cast out a woman as the senator who's trying to bring Superman in, and he comes in. Blah da 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 da. There's a whole build-up, and then the sort of disabled Wayne Enterprises employee's been, sold himself to the devil for a brand new wheelchair.
Wheelchair.
Although he's been rejecting all of Bruce's money.
No, but that was established. That's established later that it's Lex Luthor doing that.
What I wasn't really paying attention. Let's be honest. I was. The Lex Luthor was doing it, but still, like, did Lex Luthor just pick that one person that became disabled that just coincidentally was saved? It doesn't matter. Like, what pissed me off because I thought that was the Joker based off the trailer saying you let your family die.
Yeah, so really the kind of writing style was like the Joker, wasn't it?
The way that finished, though, I fucking shut myself in the sense that I don't jump easy in films, but I had no idea that it was going to be a bomb. But it was when she turns the piss round, it's like, she looks at the chair, it's like, okay, she's clocked on that Lex Luthor's not there. How the hell was anyone meant to know that it's going to blow up? And like, I thought that was really cool because Superman's just there, chilling in all of their ashes. And
he doesn't care, does he? He's just looking around like...
Well, he disappears. I thought that was a really good subplot to frame him, have everyone turn against him, Batman turn against him. 1 minute later, it's, oh, we believe the bomber was this guy. And I was there like, okay, so he's clearly innocent. Batman, what are you fighting him for?
Yeah.
But again, they should have played off that because that would have set him up to be this villainous bastard. But they just didn't play it because it was really cool. It was different. Didn't see that coming by a mile off. And it was memorable. And
Lex Luthor completely ditches his...
Yeah. You just forget that he's blown up a senator in DC. There's a lot of people there. They just forget. And I'm surprised Lois Lane was in the room because she's everywhere when she needs to be. She's the one time that she couldn't be saved. Of course, they're going to put her outside the room and it explodes.
Yeah. Tate would have come up with a reason for that because he did actually.
Tate's like I mean, like Tate will probably like this film, but he's going to see the flaws in it as well.
Yeah,
we both said about Man of Steel. But it was a really cool subplot. I like what they did with it. It just they gloss over it because they're trying to do too much. It's just too many stories going on, and it just affects it so bad. Because the whole focus of the trailer is the court case stuff.
Yeah.
You just glossed it.
And how it was written as well. Like I remember, I don't know if I mentioned this in the review or if this what I was talking about, but the whole versus thing. Usually, in terms of a fight, it's VS versus, but this was just written V, which is how it's written in the court of law when it's two people opposing people. So I was expecting this when I saw that in the trailer.
A courtroom drama. It's a few good men. You can't handle the truth.
Oh, that would have been. I'd have been more hyped for that than this movie.
Great.
But yeah, so jumping back, we were talking about too many storylines and stuff like that. I think we've gone over it. We referred to it a bit, but the dream sequence, which I'm not too well read up on DC Comics. Like I know of characters, but not so much of plot things. Batman's sort of on his back computer, just typing. There's a loading bar going across, and then we flash to Batman in the desert in a duster jacket with guns, just shooting everyone, which was hilarious and awesome at the same time.
You don't click onto the fact that it's a
No,
because until he wakes up, and you just think, what on earth? He's gunning down. He's merciless.
he's the Punisher. He's
down.
Frank Castle in this scene. He's just merciless. It's that scene from Daredevil in the prison ward, but just with guns.
Bloody hell!
What you needed is to establish. You needed like the whole wavy fade of
But
like
that
the
would have
harp
been too
music.
on the nose.
But it just comes out so.
The teasing.
Is this going to settle for Justice League or something? I guess.
I don't know a lot about Darkseid, but I know that the sort of Omega sign is his, which is in the desert, which is really weird. But what just didn't make sense was that he's dreaming within a dream. Because then Flash jumps through the portal. He's like, you could have.
Is that who that was?
That was the dream.
Flash.
Yeah, that was the shitty Ezra Miller Flash. Because the second I came in, there was me smugly sat there like, yeah, bet you wish I had Grant Gustin, because that TV show is fucking incredible.
Did you see? I think was it Jason Momoa? They did there was a picture that was released a couple of weeks ago, which was him with all the props for the future Justice League movies.
You can see the Flash costume in the back.
Yeah, and it's the classic one. It's like the red helmet with the zip, but the costume in this, he looked like a Power Ranger. It was really.
I think they're trying to do too much. So Superman's there, like, you could have saved her and all this, and I thought, hey, they're doing too many eggs. Are they setting up a Darkseid coming into it, or are they setting up another Justice League film where potentially Lois Lane's dead? And it sounded like Injustice, because you then had, you could have saved someone, blah blah blah, which is what they do with Flash in the Injustice game. And there's the whole Superman's got his own army. Again, that's Injustice. So it wasn't clear they're setting up Darkseid in this flashback. Apparently, he's in like wing things, which are his. But it wasn't clear, because there's definitely not Justice League Part 1 that's going to be.
No. But everyone in our cinema was confused. Like, wakes back up, you get people murmuring in the audience, like, did we just drop acid for like 5 minutes? What just happened? There were like Geonosians from Attack of the Clones flying around.
Like, that scene started out of nowhere and finished nowhere, and
it didn't filter into the plot. And this is my point with, and we'll get into it later with the trailers, basically, for all the rest of the Justice League. They're not subtly done at all. Like, Marvel are really smart. Apart from Iron Man 2, which is also another example of a film that is like a trailer for the Avengers. They're usually smart with their tie-ins. You'll get maybe one character who appears, like Hawkeye and Thor, to set up later, or I think it was in Winter Soldier where someone name drops a Doctor Strange, or Stephen Strange or something like that. And films later, we're going to get Doctor Strange. And then when you go back and watch them all back, it's going to make a lot more sense. This just dumping a scene where you've got pillars of fire. I think it was a ruined metropolis. I don't even know. Desert, Batman killing people, everything like that. It just came out of nowhere, and as I said, ended nowhere. And at first, when I'd heard in reviews, and you told me as well before seeing it, that Batman kills people in this movie, so be prepared for that. I thought this was the one scene you were going to refer to. And I thought that's a cool take, because this is in the far future where all the shit's gone down. Batman's just completely lost his way. Superman's lost his way in this weird future-scape thing. Earth 2, whatever it's going to be. And I thought, okay, that's cool. That's a cool way to take Batman. But no, after this, he just does it all the way through the movie.
Yeah.
There's Can I talk about the Batmobile chase really quickly while we're on the subject?
There's so much that's wrong with it, but it was great.
It's the first off, the Batmobile was awesome, and seeing it drive around was just epic. And see Batman have all these gadgets on. It was totally the Batmobile from the Arkham Knight game. But then he started killing people, and he wasn't just killing them. There's a scene where he latches onto a car, drags it around behind him, and it's bouncing around like a pinball machine, and he slingshots it into another car, killing both people in each car. And then I think he blows up something as well, and then he willingly drives into Superman. It's just, that was where the film just broke away from me, because I was totally into the Batman character, but then after that he just became a psychopath, and it lost every shred of the quality of the character. Again,
this is what I was getting at earlier about Batman. Is it going to be related to the Robin stuff, just not give a flying fuck anymore, but they just don't explain why? Because Zack Snyder did an interview the other day where he's like, I don't think people have counted, but in Nolan's film he kills like 43. I was like, mate, you've clearly counted. You don't have to say like, because you specifically said 43. So like, and he hasn't killed 43 people in Nolan's films. Fuck off.
But this is the thing, like, I don't know where I stand on it, because as you said, Batman that great picture from the graphic novel with Batman hanging someone. So he has killed before, I'm aware of that. He kills in Nolan's trilogy. Hell, he kills Harvey Dent, who's a massive iconic character.
He spears off a building, and he cripples himself for 8 years in the process.
Yeah.
That's Liam Neeson died. That's a cool way of saying I don't have to save you. But again, if they clearly explain that he's fucked in the head from Robin dying and has now got a different attitude, then great. But they don't explain it. They just haven't. But they try to make it subtle, because Zack Snyder's defended it by saying, "Oh yeah, well, you see him, killing people in the cars. They don't show them or explain they're dead, but they are." They're like, you don't say that because you've made faults when you have to specifically target the previous films.
Yeah.
And I honestly have no issue with him killing people, because I was over that with the Arkham game. And I think it's different. It was interesting. But again, this is all going to come down to how he's portrayed in the future. But the car scene was great. I mean, we haven't, in the sense that we haven't actually seen a Batmobile scene. We've seen it on the roofs in Batman Begins.
Yeah.
We've seen it in the Burton ones. You haven't really seen it in the two shite ones. It was something different and really cool. And I'd like to have seen more. I've always wanted a sort of Batmobile chase, and it was cool to see it happen. The Gotham Docks, the setting was great. But then it just kind of, oh, Superman's there, for fuck's sake. If you'd have told Superman straight away, they've got kryptonite, you're fucked if they take it, then he would have done something, but it was just like, okay.
I thought they actually established kryptonite really well.
Oh, I like what they did with kryptonite. They use it clever with taking the sort of fingertips off to use its ID and stuff. I like the kryptonite dynamic in the film, but it just like Batman's rampage when he's going to get it, it just didn't make sense.
I think Tom has something to say about.
Right. What I want to say is they completely disregard their own movie, their own previous movie, with the fact that Lois Lane goes into the spaceship at the beginning of Man of Steel, and then gets completely fucked by this robot.
Yeah, and the robot's best mates with Lex Luthor.
Yeah. What on earth? And just because he's got some stupid Zod's fingerprints, he's gonna still be a foreign agent.
Well, it attacks Superman as well when he goes in.
Yeah, it does.
And he'll have the fingerprints. So.
It's a different spaceship.
Oh, it's a different spaceship. Oh, fantastic! That's
I'm not defending it, but because in that one, isn't that they didn't go into it, but isn't the Forge of Solitude or whatever they want to call it? Isn't it just a crash spaceship?
Yeah. I thought it would be the same tech though, but it's so easy.
Tech, but it's not clear what they're doing with it. Did they design a building? Did they design the rebuilding of Metropolis around a crashed spaceship?
Yeah, like apparently so, because it's right there, smack bang in the middle, isn't it? But another thing.
But then they still have the codex is actually in Superman, isn't it?
No, there is another codex, but it's a different one, isn't it? Because Lex takes it out, and I thought, oh, maybe that's the one. That like USB chip thing they push into the thing and press the thing. But that was in the one that went into the warp zone and made the Phantom Drive. This is a different one, but it was just so easy. And my friend was saying this, like it was just Zod is dead. Are you the new commander? Yes. Are you sure you want it? It was like on a computer. It's like, are you sure? Yes or no. It was like, are you sure you want to create a doomsday? Because that's like a really, really bad thing. Yes. Okay, then, and he just starts making it. But it's kind of nice to see Michael Shannon again.
Well, even in body form.
In body form.
I half expected Doomsday to just repeat, "I will find him," and put just on repeat throughout the entire run of the Doomsday fight. When Superman's in space, like he gets hit by a nuclear warhead, and then Doomsday's on the floor. I will find him.
But like, I don't understand why Lex Luthor putting his blood had anything to do with anything.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like, was it his child or something? Like, what's he trying to do?
I guess it was, yeah. So he mated.
Why wasn't Doomsday?
I guess that's what we're meant to infer, right? And then when it is born, it's like the Uruk-hai from Lord of the Rings.
I hope that's not in the R-rated.
That's why it's R-rated.
I did read there's apparently 2 scenes with Doomsday that make it R-rated. So either he's killing some pedestrians, which would be hilarious, or there's some more like naked pool stuff going on. Did you notice though, like he broke out, like although it was Zod's body, Zod's penis has disappeared as he turns.
Yeah, right.
It's like this is the guy that made Dr. Manhattan. He's just made a brown version and made him bigger.
Yeah.
He's regenerating with his spikes. It was just
because that's what this movie, right? Just
Doomsday was just stupid. Like you could have got away with it.
I mean the whole spike thing coming out when Wonder Woman cut. This is getting way ahead, but I don't care. Where she cuts off his arm and grows a spike, you almost immediately think, I wonder what that's going to be used for.
It's not very practical, is it? Though, like you'd expect him to grow another hand back, you just get. But actually, when he's first born, and he's just smooth, he just looks like a troll from Lord of the Rings, or Abomination, or the Lizard, or any other generic-looking thing. Yeah. Even the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which we got a trailer for again, so that put me in a great mood before the movie. But he didn't look like Doomsday, and I was like, where are all the bony protrusions? He should have them. And then I actually kind of like that, where when he gets hit by weapons, he sort of adapts to it.
That's like the Incredible Hulk. He gets more angry and then becomes like big.
Well, that is it. It's basically a copy of the Hulk.
to quote Max Lander, he's just a grey version of the Hulk.
It's just a grey version of the Hulk. But when he started getting the bony protrusion, I was like, that's cool. But they're not like how they look in the comic. And then I think he gets hit a 3rd time. It's basically a boss battle. It's always like you have to hit them 3 times and then they go down. But then he got the proper spikes, and I was like, okay, that's decent. And he is dead apparently, though, at this point, isn't he? But I thought his power was that he can't be killed. And they do talk about that, where they're throwing everything they've got at him, but it's not working. Yeah. So I don't know whether they're going to bring Doomsday back again. But even I don't think they will, because the main Doomsday story from the comics, they kind of do in this movie. And again, this is getting way ahead of ourselves, but the death of Superman, it happens in this movie. Couldn't we have waited at least wait till Man of Steel 2, like the proper sequel? Or so were you shocked to see Superman die in it? I was expecting him at any moment to come back from it.
I was shocked because when they killed him, I was kind of shocked because I thought Doomsday he'd be defeated. I don't think they'd kind of kill Doomsday, but they have done. I thought they'd leave him for maybe a future film. Captain America, he's going to probably get killed off because he's had so many films now. So it's ballsy, and I give him credit because it worked. I mean, I saw some people on some websites comments saying like there's like a kid crying when Superman died and stuff, and
what kid?
Actually, like. And I was kind of shocked, but then I was there like, well, I know Justice League Part 1 and Part 2 has been confirmed. And I know they've confirmed another Superman film, it just hasn't got a release date yet. And it would have worked maybe in a Justice League film with the next Man of Steel. It was early, so yes, I was shocked and surprised. And as long as they've got a plan, I don't think they do, though, to bring him out of this, like literally, I would not be surprised knowing DC if Bruce Wayne turns around and then he just flies out of the wooden crate.
Yeah.
The soil.
Like a zombie man to break through at the end and just like punch its way out of the coffin.
They should have left it because you could hear a heartbeat. They didn't need to show the soil lifting. I thought it worked to the credit, like him developing for Superman, but I thought it was a cool moment or two. I'd give him credit on that. I think it was well done, the funeral scene. they was kind of like, now we have to find the others. I was like, oh, you don't actually need to find the others. He's like, why have we got to find the others? Because there's a fight coming.
Yeah.
And,
you don't
and
even find it because you've got trailers for them all on an email.
he said that before he has the scene with Lex Luthor, didn't he?
Yeah, I think so.
Whereas Lex Luthor then says someone's coming and they should have done that the other way around. And I'm guessing Lex is there like, oh yeah, I spoke to him, he's coming. And I was there like, what, did you just like ring Darkseid through your Man of Steel aeroplane and be like, you want to come to Earth? Because that's what they're hinting at. But I thought they handled it well. I didn't see it coming at all. I thought they'd just have something dealt with.
The one scene, or the one bit, which is probably the most redeeming thing about this movie, and it happens just before the funeral stuff, and I tried to hold in my laughter for it.
Ding, ding, ding.
It's where he holds his face up to the go, ding, ding, ding.
I want a ding off.
Laughing at that, though.
I want a ding off between Hector from Breaking Bad and Jesse Eisenberg. Just imagine like Jesse Eisenberg shouting ding, then it's like Hector's face and pressing the bell. Quicker and quicker.
It just got completely jarring, and then you go into the funeral stuff, or I think it was where Martha comes into Clark's room, I think, and speaks to Lois, and then they drop the proposal thing. But from the previous scene, I was just like trying really desperately to just kind of hold my laughter, and it was supposed to be a very tender moment, and
the whole ending of this movie, like mostly the last shot, really reminded me of X-Men 3: The Last Stand, with Magneto hovering his hand over the chest piece and it just moves slightly and then cuts. It really reminded me of that. I think it was too early to do the death of Superman, in all honesty. I mean, if you're going to have Doomsday in the movie, I mean, that would be kind of having Bane in a Batman movie and not doing the back break. It's iconic to the character, but I think they could have saved Doomsday at least for like the third Superman movie or something like that. Also, the proposal, I was hoping for more chemistry between Lois and Clark all the way through this movie, and I just never got that. They had zero in the first one. It was just, you look hot, I'm attracted to you.
This time it was, I'm naked in the bath, come join me.
Yeah.
You're Amy Adams.
Yeah, and then by the end it's just, they do the I love you. It was almost like in Attack of the Clones, like, I truly, deeply love you. And it's just so easy, we don't get any sense that they do. We're just told.
So sandy.
It is so sandy. Did you see what Darkseid's going to do to Metropolis? It's just the desert. What else? Oh, the big thing I want to talk about, and then we'll talk about what we think is going to happen with Justice League, and then we'll sort of round up after that, because there's just so much to talk about in this movie. The actual fight, the name of the movie, Batman v Superman. For me,
it was a pretty cool fight. I didn't like the ending of the fight though.
No, and that's what I want to touch on in a minute, because that was ridiculous. But the fight itself, we go through about 2 hours of talking and set up for this fight, and you're all just waiting for it. You know, we've seen the trailer, we know what's going to happen, so let's just get to it. And we finally get to it, and it starts off great, and it's on for about 3 to 5 minutes. Yeah. And there was nothing particular in the fight that wowed me. It was cool to see them fighting, but you run the risk, if you did make it too long, you'd run the risk of it going on for too long, like, say, Pod Racing and Phantom Menace. It just goes on way too long. You just lose the initial build-up of the fight's over. But for me as well, the level of setup you have before it, the payoff itself wasn't fulfilling in any way. I wasn't wowed. I wasn't shocked. I wasn't, okay, well, the rest of the movie was bad, but this fight's cool. It just sort of all, again, like the soundtrack, just all merged into one for me, really.
What I want to say about the fight is, when they announced this film, they got the guy on stage and they quoted Dark Knight Returns. Remember the guy that beat you? Everyone knows the passage, that bit.
I was really hoping for that, actually.
I was waiting for that. I was waiting and waiting, and then it was Martha. And then there's this like the fuck face where he's just there, like, you go like ape shit mental. And I really liked Stinger. I like the fight. I can deal with how it ended, but I've wanted that Dark Knight Returns ending so much, because Batman has legitimately beaten shit into him. and he could have even said that, even after the mouth stuff, he still could have said the line, and he never did. And you know, I want to say a massive fuck you to Zack Snyder, because he said in an interview, Batman's got the gun. I don't really care about the guns, but he said he was inspired by the gun because of Dark Knight Returns. He clearly hasn't read Dark Knight Returns, because in Dark Knight Returns he's destroying guns. And they should have used that line. That's the most like iconic line they could have ever had, and they didn't do it because I liked the fight, and I can deal with the mouth ending. It's just don't advertise and big up the Dark Knight Returns for years of a marketing campaign to then almost throw it away. Because the Martha subplot was great, but every single person was waiting for the Dark Knight Returns dialogue, and it just wasn't there. And for a guy that's like lived off plagiarism, you think that would be there. And the whole fight itself is a shame, because I think that some of the first two trailers did a great job of building up sort of the Batman tension. There were moments in this where the tension's great, and then it was kind of like, I've kidnapped your mother, now fight. And it was just like, okay, I could deal with that, but I really enjoyed the fight, and I'm happy it didn't go on for too long, because Man of Steel, watching last week, I still like Man of Steel. I still like this film. As much as I've slagged off, this is still a film I enjoy and I will see again. They make it short so they can go into that next fight. I think it pays off just, but it was, I don't know if I'd say disappointing or not. It was really cool to see them fight, but I just wanted that bit more. I'd rather Batman v Superman would have been a fight between the two of them. To then almost, I said for ages it would finish with the Justice League could form together or something like that. They don't. But I don't know if it felt like a missed opportunity or if it was perfect, because Batman just beats the shit into them. And it was cool seeing the Kryptonite stuff, his death traps and all that sort of stuff. They kind of very influenced off Dark Knight Returns again. Instead of having Arrow shoot a Kryptonite arrow at Superman, he just shoots him with a Kryptonite gun. But I liked the fight, but something just didn't feel right at the end.
Yeah.
My thoughts about the fight. One thing I actually really dug about the fight, and I think about this now, and I didn't give it any thought at the time, was his preparation for it, and the actual gas grenades that the weaponized kryptonite that he uses, and all the traps he sets up. But again, I just think, well, he's got to be pretty precise with where he drags Superman, and if Superman wants, he could just fly to another building, and that's basically Batman fucked.
But Batman's planned it. He can get into his head, you see, because
the bullshit. I'm calling, and I just the ending to the fight,
the Martha thing.
Why does one word, one name Superman utters completely end their feud? I mean, he's still gonna think that he's a complete bastard for leveling a city, but why is that a thing? Why is it a thing? I don't understand how he comes to the realization that Superman's good just because his mother has the same fucking name.
I was saying this to us yesterday, like, that settles the feud, and then I was about to say, like, well, what's your dad's name? And then they both got different dad's names, and it's back to the fight again. But that to me was just Zack Snyder just reading Superman comics and Batman comics and going, hang on a minute. Have people noticed this before? The mother's names are the same? I'm going to write this into my movie. This is great. This is so intelligent. People have never thought of this. It's just ridiculous. And then Batman goes like, Martha's not dying tonight, or something like that. It was terrible.
I promise you, I'll find her.
Yeah.
And they're just friends all of a sudden. I mean, what the
based on the mother's name. I mean, you could have done things where, I mean, both of their parents are technically dead, like their birth parents. You could have done stuff like that. You could play that up. And it's been a while since I've read Dark Knight Returns, but to my knowledge, Batman doesn't try to kill Superman. I think the whole point of the fight is to bring him down to his level and to say, I think he says, like, to know that a man beat you or something like that, or that to just prove a point to Superman. But like Batman's here with like a spear with kryptonite on, ready to drive it straight into his face and kill him. I don't know. So let's just round up on the Justice League stuff then. Are we hyped to see where this is all going to lead to?
No!
Or because for me, we're 2 for 2 at the minute of bad DC movies in this new cinematic universe. So Suicide Squad's going to be the tell. I am going to look forward to seeing Joker in that. The Jared Leto Joker's really grew on me from the trailers and the clips we've seen. It looks very different. I'm looking forward to seeing Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn because I do think that is perfect casting for that character. If that film is good, maybe I'll be excited for the future, but not for any Zack Snyder related projects. And to think this guy used to be one of my favourite directors based on 300 Watchmen. I even like the Owl movie, Legends of Ga'Hoole. I thought that was decent.
I don't know what on earth you're talking about. Zack Snyder being anyone's favourite director is kind of mind-boggling. Because, I mean, he's only made one good film, and that was a remake.
Yeah, and then it sort of all went downhill for me with Sucker Punch, and then he's never recovered from that.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, go on, sorry.
Justice League. I'm excited to see the Justice League on screen. That aspect. I thought it was abysmal, the email trailers.
Oh, yeah. We should talk about that really briefly.
I mean, I'm a big fan of the Flash TV show, and I don't understand that Lex Luthor's designed all their logos. Lex Luthor's found out who they are. If he can find, the disabled guy from Wayne Tower, but he can find the fastest man in the world on a thing, but he can't identify him, is awful because it's Barry Allen. It's the guy that's sort of like criminal investigator that would be on records everywhere, but they just can't find him. I thought it was just like, what a load of shit.
Too easy. It was way too. You didn't even need it.
The Aquaman stuff, like Jason Momoa is a cool guy. When they cast him early. They had pictures of him. You think, okay, he's going to be in it for a scene or two. There was talk of that, and it was just him hiding in an underwater tent and spearing someone out of the fucking sea.
Again, killing people.
He looked, I can deal with him because Jason Momoa, like, I've been next to him. He's a guy you not fuck, he would break your neck. He suits DC, but it was just like I wanted more, and it was just it was cheap.
Cyborg as well.
Yeah, it was just like, oh yeah, we get Cyborg's origin, but you just cut into the video of what looked like the Man of Steel tech just sort of raping his son into Cyborg. Like that's literally what it's like.
You were a fan of Transformers: Age of Extinction?
It was like the new tech. Over him.
Yeah,
like you send like bodies hanging off. Like pretty sure in the comics, Cyborg's just a leg or two. He's not like a third of a human being on a plugged into a wall. It's just not how it works. But it was cheap, and they shouldn't have even bothered casting anyone. I thought it was just a waste of a few years of hype. Should have done the multiverse that Flash were doing. Zack Snyder spoke about that. He says he looked at the show, and I'm guessing because Grant Gustin's smile was in it, he decided not to use it.
But it was just too easy. You're literally watching Wonder Woman watch these almost like webisode trailers that would be released on like a viral marketing site in real time. That's no way to do a crossover. And I was expecting, like, when news was coming out, we were going to see a clip of the Flash, we were going to see a clip of Aquaman, all that stuff. I was expecting them when Bruce Wayne's having that discussion with her at the end of the funeral, it was going to cut away and it says, we need to find the rest of them. And he's like, who? And then you could cut away to those shots briefly. As she's talking over, you've got a voiceover of her talking over the top, and that would have been a cool way to end it. But no, we get the trailers. For Justice League, for me, I love DC. When DC can be done right, I think that the material's there. It's really mature stuff, and you can do a lot of thematic stuff with it, but I just don't think they've achieved that with these movies yet. Wonder Woman film might be interesting. I want to see more of her character, but I wish I'd have just seen that before this movie. If they'd have been smarter with the layout of it all, they've just really rushed it, and that's really evident with this movie. I am looking forward to seeing Ben Affleck's solo Batman movie, but I'm just worried that the studio is going to be bearing down on him, and he's not going to make the movie he wants to be able to make, because we've seen capable directors work in Marvel stuff, and the Marvel machine controls everything, how the movie flows, and I don't know whether it's going to turn out right, especially if it's the Batman that's still killing people. That's going to really bother me throughout that whole movie. So I guess we'll round out, because we've been going a long time on this one. We knew it was going to be a long review, but final words, would you recommend it? Was it what you wanted? Just everything like that, and we'll round off from there. So George, what do you reckon?
I like this film. I'll say it again. I'm going to watch this in IMAX this week. Well, I should watch it in IMAX. I do want to watch it in IMAX. You have to watch it because it's divisive with everyone. I can't recommend it because you're going to love or you hate it. Don't think there's a middle ground on this. Man of Steel, you can get because, yeah, it's all right. It's shit. It's good. This is, I think, a love or hate film because everyone I've seen that's liked it loved it, and everyone that's hated it. I don't know if I'm disappointed because I was only excited for that Batman stuff, and I was so happy with the Batman stuff I saw. So that passing, I just didn't like the Justice League setup for it, and they do waste a lot of potential. But all in all, if I don't know, like I don't really grade films, but maybe it's between a 6 and an 8. Depends how I feel on the day.
Yeah. What's interesting though is like you say you really enjoy it, but I'd say more so than Man of Steel, you actually agree with most of our points.
Well, no. I'll actually text Tate. I can't handle 2-on-1. I can't defend it because I'm getting sword. But it's one of them where I can accept this isn't like a great film, but I fucking loved it.
But you
like a lot of things. No, there are an awful amount of flaws. Like, I never came out saying it was perfect. I just think that a load of critics are being bullshit when they compare it to the Avengers, considering it's DC Comics. That's really pissed me off. But no, I thoroughly enjoy this film. There just are an awful amount of flaws in it, and I'm waiting for Tate to come back to then have a handicap match on you.
Yeah, I guess I'll be
we kind of said the same. When we did the Man of Steel live stream, you weren't slagging off as much as you do to us normally.
No.
It's harder when you're on your own against two of opinions.
It is, yeah. But no, I was looking forward to seeing what Tate says on it. In an interesting turn of events, maybe he will think the same as me, but I think he'll pick up more on the themes of Superman and probably really gravitate. Yeah, themes of Superman and gravitate towards one. So Tom, last words, Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice.
That's it. That's all I've got. It's a shit movie, and don't go and watch it. I mean, if you really want to go see it, if you like it, it's fine. I'm not going to go. You're wrong, even though you are. But no,
it's like it. It's just if I came out and said this is a perfect story with a beautiful cast and performances and blah, blah, blah. There are DC fanboys. They're all over my Twitter at the minute. There is this one guy that sent a tweet. I think I've linked you guys his tweets before where he's just deluded to the max, which is hilarious. He came out like, I need another fix. I need another loop. And he's there like, everything that's wrong with this film is its strengths. And I was just there like, there's stuff wrong with it, but I just had a good time. It's like, the reason I compare Transformers to Fast and Furious films, I switched my head off, and it's there. Whereas like the Dark Knight trilogy, as such, you don't switch your head off because they're intellectual films. You do need to think and stuff as well. Obviously, there's the Batman films. It's like I can switch my head off and watch this film. Winter Soldier, I'll be Civil War. I'll concentrate a lot more than I did drawing Batman with Superman, because it was just I want to see some action. Because really, I don't. There's a time and a place. Like I do like seeing good films, but this is a movie as such. There's such a fine line between a movie and a film, and this is certainly a movie.
Yeah. I mean, if you like it, you like it, and that's
exactly.
Personally, I really didn't find hardly anything to really like about this film at all, and I think it's pretty boring. It was boring for me. 150 minutes is too long for a film that actually essentially goes nowhere, and that's kind of my final thoughts on it. It just doesn't go anywhere.
And I'm exactly the same as you. I wasn't entertained by this. I found it incredibly dull, plodding, too long. The length wouldn't have been too bad if stuff was actually happening in it, because there is a lot that this movie was trying to do, and I think it was developing the themes a lot more and the characters. If we had moments of character, I think I would have enjoyed this film a lot more, but it's just ultimately 150 minutes of nothing. It's no setup, no payoff, no lessons are learned, nothing's developed upon from Man of Steel. And if they do start to pose that, it ultimately goes nowhere. The action didn't wow me in any way. It was very, very overly CGI, and the cinematography, I could hardly tell what was going on in the ending at some points. And it's just a joyless movie. And in a movie with Superman and Batman, I know Batman's got to be a grim character, but there's got to be at least something there that makes it entertaining for me. And I know some people are going to find this film entertaining. There was just nothing in it for me. I found it a very plodding, dull movie, and In terms of recommending it, again, if you're the kind of person like me who goes to see every single superhero film that comes out, you kind of have to go and see it. If you're a Batman fan, I've said this, I have to support Batman and throughout the bad and the good. So that's why I was at this movie. But if I was going to compare it to one, I obviously had the same thoughts during this movie as I did with Phantom Force Stick. I was just passively watching it. I wasn't invested in anything. Stuff was just happening. It was dull. It was grim. It was boring. And they tried to bring some themes into it and they don't pay out. I'm repeating myself anyway, so that'll do it for our review. I'm looking forward to what Tate has to say on it, and I'm going to be outnumbered on that one, so that's going to be fun. So yeah, let us know what you thought of Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Be sure to comment, subscribe. I'm probably it's gonna be interesting to see if I have a popular opinion on this one again, and people are gonna be, I'm gonna get death threats my way because I don't like this movie. But do drop us a comment. We love having a conversation with you guys and seeing what you think on the movie. In terms of what's coming up next, I know we need to do a 10 Cloverfield Lane review. I know it's been out for a week. I mean, I can do a solo one on that if no one gets to see it. We'll have a review up with me and you for The Witch at some point too. And I guess the next big one is Civil War, right? That's the next big superhero one, at least. I know we've got Eddie the Eagle is out next week, I think. We'll have loads more reviews anyway, so do hit that subscribe button, stick around, because we are bringing you a lot more content. I'll have my reaction videos up as well when we get new trailers. So yeah, that'll do it for our very, very long review on Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Until the next video, we will see you next time. So